Explore different funds during both short and long-term market challenges and opportunities. The TIFIN Investment Manager Series, hosted by Digital Wealth News, features fund managers and investment leaders who share their market insights, their perspectives, and their strategies so that you can unlock investment opportunities.
Hi, everyone. How are you? Welcome to today's segment. I am Dara Albright, President of D-Wealth Education. I'm excited to be here with Tal Lomnitzer. Tal is the Senior Investment Manager on the Global Natural Resources team and a Portfolio Manager for the Net Zero Transition Resources ETF, the symbol JZRO, at Janus Henderson Investors. We are really excited to have Tal on the show today on TIFIN's video series to help us really dive into how global natural resources stocks are playing a role in today's investing and JZRO as well. Tal, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a great pleasure, Dara. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Excellent. So let's get started, jump right in. Supply chain discussions seem to be popping up more frequently in our everyday lives. And it's no surprise that investors are focusing on natural resource stocks. What defines global natural resources stocks?
So here at Janus Henderson on the natural resources team, we define natural resources pretty widely. We look across the food chain, all the way from the mining of copper through to the manufacture of wires, into wind turbines, companies that use those wind turbines to construct offshore wind farms, through to the electrons that come out of your plug. We look at the metals and mining sector, we look at energy, and we also look at the agriculture sector, which is going to be absolutely key in helping the world to decarbonize. And we do all of that under the umbrella of net zero or decarbonization.
Now, we hear there is an anticipated global investment of more than 100 trillion towards net zero and global natural resources. Would you be able to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure, it's a very exciting wave of investment coming, and it's not often that we get to see something like that ahead of us. So most of the sell side sees ranges of between 120 and 160 trillion dollars of cumulative capex required by 2050 in order to decarbonize the world's energy supply. And that's through the provision of new infrastructure, renewable energy. And what excites us about that is the spending that's coming, but also the enormous requirement that's going to impose on metals. It's going to mean a lot of metals are required: steel to manufacture the turbines, copper and cobalt and nickel and lithium to go into the electric vehicles, for example, and the batteries. So we see a really interesting opportunity lying ahead, which as investors excites us tremendously.
So interesting. There seems to be a huge trend also towards net zero. And how does a JZRO in particular position its strategy to benefit from this global trend?
That's a great question. So we look at the sector and break it down into several buckets in order to take this big thematic of decarbonization or net zero and take it into something much more manageable and investable. So we start by looking at 5 big buckets: sustainable industry, sustainable mobility, sustainable agribusiness. We look at decarbonization, and we look at the energy transition. And we then look into sub-themes below that. For example, the resource enablers of decarbonization. I've already mentioned some of those metals that are going to be required, but we also see things like hydrogen, energy storage, grid infrastructure as key parts of the energy transition. Or in sustainable agribusiness, we're excited by the growth prospects for plant-based protein and the opportunities that affords to help decarbonize or reduce the carbon footprint of food supply as we try to feed a growing world population.
So now you're probably aware the Inflation Reduction Act was recently passed here in the US. How has this act in particular accelerated the opportunities in the global natural resources? And with that question, maybe you could provide an example also of a company in JZRO that may benefit.
Certainly. So the Inflation Reduction Act we believe is utterly transformational and going to be really impactful when it comes to investment in renewable energy and the associated infrastructure. And that's because what it provides is an unprecedented time frame of investment tax credits, production tax credits, and other incentives that encourage people to invest in either electric vehicles or building new wind or solar production capacity. It also is going to make hydrogen very much more competitive as an alternative form of energy storage, or as a fuel for transport, or as a medium for decarbonizing certain industrial processes, like the manufacture of steel. One of the companies that we find to be particularly exciting and we hold in the portfolio is a company like Air Products. It's a big industrial gases company. It already makes money out of producing hydrogen, and we think that it's got a real edge and a lead in terms of the amount of money that it's investing to benefit from this, which will hopefully also benefit shareholders. Another company that we think will benefit is a company like NextEra, which is already a large provider of renewable energy and an existing utility player in the US who can stack their investments. They can invest in the renewable power, wind or solar, as well as hydrogen and as well as energy storage, and really benefit from that cash flow visibility that the Inflation Reduction Act is bringing forward.
Well, Tal, thank you so much for your insights on global natural resource investing, such a fascinating topic. And for anyone interested in this topic or Janus Henderson Investors, please visit janushenderson.com.